Who should be the new face of Power Rangers? Next up on Just to Talk, so let's talk about it. And welcome to the Flicks, Picks, and the Nitpicks, and I am your humble host, 0718, and we're gonna get right into it. I want to ask the question. Actually, everyone's been asking the question. It's not my question, but who should be the face of Mighty Morphin? Actually, not just Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, that's the Power Rangers franchise. And I found myself pondering this question after once and always, and I'm having a couple conversations with people in the comment sections where people were discussing the series and how much they liked it or maybe even disliked it or what have you. Not that I even got too much of those, but everybody been wondering who should be, since JDF passed, should be the face of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Or rather, not Mighty Morphin Power Rangers specifically, they're saying Power Rangers a franchise. Now, I wondered that there's many different conversations that I kind of want to have about this, and I'll ask another question, another Just to Talk. But I wanted to really, if we were to take the fact that JDF being the most popular Power Ranger, and I have some discrepancies about what do you consider the face of Power Rangers, I still want to play with the idea of who would be the new face. Now, I think if there was a new face to be pondered, they already chose it. And they're already preparing to move forward with it. With the understanding that I think I know who they would have wanted to be the new face of. But I also want to bring in some new possible contenders. Now, the idea is you want to get someone who could frontline the series. And when you look at JDF, he frontlined the series, but it was more because he was real popular. He came in as a Green Ranger. The character was more interesting, if you will, if you really want to look at it. And when I say interesting, is because of how he came in. He was like the anti. He had the green jagged shield on. All his diamonds wasn't exactly the same. He was created as a standout, visually seeing, and how he just came into the series. So that kind of adrenaline just doesn't go nowhere, and everybody always remembers the Green Ranger. So which Ranger is the most memorable? And we already know who everyone's gonna say. It's gonna be Jason. And I'm talking Jason Lee Scott. He would be the one everyone would want to pivot to. Let's think about it. He was the first Red Ranger, and arguably, if not like damn near hands down, seen as the best Red Ranger, the best leader. And you could argue this. He even wore the gold shield. Tommy passed the shield down to him before. I mean, it would make sense for him to take on Tommy's dagger. But we have other people out here. You have contenders like Billy. And I'm going to really discuss Billy in a separate conversation to go a little bit more in depth. But you do have Billy. And he is another character that can be seen to potentially lead or frontline the series. And not even the series, the franchise. I gotta separate it from once and only to being the person that you will continuously see as popping up as like the face of Power Rangers, just by how they presented him in once and only and always. But who else? Are there any Ranger seasons? Andros is a good contender, just because of how his space was kind of the end cap of the Zordon years, and him being the one to deal the blow to allow Zordon to sacrifice himself. Who else? Adam. A lot of people talk about Adam and been saying Adam should take the green shield. A lot of people are saying this. And because he's come back a good amount of times in terms of over the years as a mentor for other teams and things of that nature. And he actually led an ensemble Power Ranger team as Mighty Morphin Black Ranger. He is another strong contender for that spot. But who else? Because I've been seeing a lot of people raising Kimberly's name up like she was big like that, and until she became Ranger Slayer, let's stop it, brother, stop it. She wasn't that big. Even Trini got developed in the comics, and boom, just as Kimberly. Kimberly is probably the longest lasting female Ranger, and maybe the most popular. And to be honest, when you think of the Pink Ranger, you would think of Kimberly. So because of that, you could argue that. But was she popular as a Ranger? Really? Not really. She wasn't much of a fighter per se. She was definitely athletic and gifted in that way, so she could get away with a lot of some of the moves and stuff like that. But they never built her character as a fighter like that, only in the Boom series. And I'm not even talking about what Amy Jo can personally do. I'm just talking about the character, what the character can do. That was all written later in comic book lore. And I'm not saying we can't utilize that to build a base for her to be elevated, but a lot of the people that says that she's a contender, I think you're just weighing way too heavily on the fact that what they've done and developed her in the comics. But is she a bad contender? If there was any female Ranger to think of, she would be it. Yeah, because I can't think of no female Ranger that just stands out like that in terms of even going to cons and over the years. You could argue the new young lady that's about to be the new Red Ranger in Cosmic Fury, but she hasn't had the time to be the front line or the face. She would need some years of development, maybe even some comic book groundwork to kind of make you look at the character to be synonymous with Power Ranger. You need a character that is just synonymous with it. And what are we finding ourselves around? You know, it seems like you more circle closely around Jason Lee Scott or St. John's character, or maybe, and like I said, Andros would be a good idea to go with, but again, in terms of what we've seen in Comic Cons and his interaction engagements, I'm not saying he's bad, but he doesn't come off as some of the most popular guys walking around in the circuit with the energy to, you know what I mean, to also continue pushing it outside of what's written for him as a character. I'm talking about as a personality. Now, I do see Billy, but David Yost hitting the circa a lot harder, but that's more around, even though he's always kind of done it, that I feel like he's ramped more around Once and Always. Now, there's somebody I haven't brought up yet, and there's a reason why, because no one even considers him. But after seeing Once and Always, we got to put his name on the table, because Once and Always pushes him in that realm. And you know what also keeps him in that realm? His actual personality outside of Power Rangers and his engagements with fans and stuff like that, I think pushes him even further. Comic book wise, they underwrite him. I talk about it all the time, and they shit on him in Boom Studios to try to make a mockery of the character. But what makes him even a bigger addition is, from what I understood, was historically speaking, in terms of live action superhero, in terms of being black, he was actually the first. He said he was the first one, and he might be right. And that is Walter Emmanuel Jones, better known as Zach Taylor from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Black Ranger. And to me, he's an outside shoot. But when you see his engagements and his personality on screen, you would think, why the fuck you not going this direction? Now, his character on screen was dope. How they dealt with his character post, let's just say, yeah, he got written off. We know about that. So that didn't help him none. Granted. But how they handled his character. And boom, no. That fucks it up because they could have built his name up as a stronger character in the book. But they did not want to because those books are more for or centered around JDF. I mean, well, Tommy Oliver and Jason Lee Scott. Both books. Omega Rangers is built about Jason Lee Scott being leveled up to the level of Tommy Oliver, and other Mighty Morphin Power Rangers now with the White Ranger as a leader is all about Tommy Oliver, centered around him and what's going on around his life and his struggles and his, from being the evil ranger and all the rest of it. They just won't try to migrate and further the character outside of that. They're going to keep playing in that well, or at least pivoting and developing maybe relationships with other characters, and maybe it don't have to center him, but at least we could build him up. No, it's all about him trying to be the leader, even after, Jason. I'm tired of that shit. How many of those are you going to do before you can actually, with all the other characters, really develop the other characters to have better associations, if not amongst each other, with each other, or have something that makes them stand out apart from just being part of Tommy's team or just being part of Jason's team? We're not doing any of that. So he never got any of those. Like, if anything, they made him a comic relief, which kind of like not only chased his character, dumped him down, and made him the village, almost the village idiot of the team, which doesn't serve any kind of promise for his character. But to not mention Zach after Once and Always would be ridiculous. But again, I still think that you got between Austin St. John, Jason, I think between Jason, Billy, and Adam, I think are going to be the only strongest names anybody in Power Ranger fandom would care about hearing. Which isn't a bad thing. But let me know, what is it a thing for you guys? Do you guys need a face for the franchise? Do you believe Power Rangers needs a face for the franchise? Leave it in the comments below. And of all the names that I threw out, am I missing any names that you guys think from other seasons that are strong enough to be utilized? I do believe there's a character from SPD, and unfortunately it's not Jack the Red Ranger. There's another, I think it was the Blue Ranger, who should have been red. He had this weird story. I think his father was once a red SPD Ranger, and he eventually becomes it, or if not him, another Ranger eventually becomes the red. It was real weird with that one, because I noticed that, because I watched SPD and all these other parts of it I caught on to later, which means that I need to watch SPD front to back, because clearly I missed a few episodes. With that being said, let me know if you have any other contenders for that belt, if you will. Leave it in the comments below, and you already know what it is. Like, share, subscribe. See you next time, and as always, time have a better outro. Chill.